Hi guys, so as you can see, I am in my bedroom, in my robe next to my bed, and I am not ready at all. And so I wanted to film a video, and I thought that it would make sense for me to just start from all the way from start to finish instead of like getting all dressed up and then filming a video, which I will do afterwards still, but I'll include you guys in the process. So get ready with me while I talk to you just about my fashion design journey, because that's something that I haven't really spoken on as much as I've been speaking on the wardrobe styling. So yeah, let's talk about that. So I'm gonna be doing my eyebrows. I have no makeup on right now. I just got out the shower and I need to do my eyebrows. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. I got my little mirror here. I got my tea for my tea drinkers. This is just hibiscus, ginger, and green tea with mint. No sugar, just a personal preference. And I've got my little tools to get started, so let's start. So yeah, I'm just gonna be completely transparent with you guys. I got into fashion from a young age. I've always loved to put outfits together and draw and sketch, and I've always been a artist from just a young age. I loved arts and crafts, and I've always drawn pictures, very descriptive, and I guess I just got better and better as I got older. And when I was younger, I didn't realize that fashion was something that I actually wanted to get into. I wanted to be a doctor, and I realized that when I was younger, I didn't really know why I wanted to be a doctor. It was just something that, if I'm honest, I thought about it paying the most, and I knew that if I became a doctor that I would be able to pay for the Louis Vuitton bags that I own. And so that is not really a good reason to become a doctor. So I'm really glad that I didn't follow that path, because while I do love servicing and helping people, I think that at the time when I was choosing my career, I think I chose the right path, something that would fulfill me at the time that I did. Now, I love the healthcare industry and I am about all things health. So being a doctor, funny enough, is something that I would want to do now. And I'm 31. I've always looked into neurology, and I've always wanted to be a neurosurgeon. It's so opposite from being a fashion designer, but not exactly, because in order to be a neurosurgeon, you work with your hands and you have to have a very steady hand. But anyways, you didn't come to this channel to talk about my hopes and dreams about being a neurosurgeon. You came to listen about my fashion journey, but that's just what where I actually started when I was younger. So anyways, when I got older in high school, I would always get complimented on the way that I dressed, just from everybody, and I never really took that too serious. I just thought it was like, okay, like people like the way that I dress, so that's just one of my talents. And so I more took that as just like, okay, I'm just talented in that. So another surprise, I wanted to go to the Air Force. So, oh, I dropped my pencil. So when I was gonna do the Air Force, I actually got talked out of it by everybody in my family. My dad was like, no, absolutely not. And all of his like best friends and his guy friends, like, because I would look up to them for advice. My dad's best friend at the time was like one of the youth pastors, and so when I talked to them about joining the military, they were so against it, and I just didn't understand. Not against joining the military, but they were against me joining. They were like, that's not for you, you should do something else, and yada yada yada. And so I thought about it and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to join the military because, like, you know, the people that I really looked up to were really pushing me against doing it. Do I regret that? I do, because had I joined the military then, I would have already like served and been out of it, and I would have been able to say like I was part of the Air Force, and I think that's so cool. So shout out to anybody that is in the military and they're getting into fashion, because I actually have met someone like that at my school, which I'm gonna get into next. Um, there was someone that left that was a veteran, and she came to fashion school, and so that was really cool of her. But yeah, it's okay. Everything happens for a reason, I guess. So, anyways, which I guess my journey kind of is a testament to that. So, when I got to high school and everybody was pressuring, you know, to make the big decision of like, what are you gonna do with your life? Like, what school are you gonna go to? What's your major gonna be? What are you looking to become? Um, I had two choices. I was like, am I going to go to fashion school? Because I'm gonna not lie to you, I was more afraid of becoming a starving artist than anything. I was just like, you know what? I love clothes and I can just like get a job that pays money, a lot of money, and that will allow me to buy the clothes that I like. And I'll just work really hard and I'll be very proud of that and I'll be fine with that. But I am a Christian, so I pray a lot. So one of the parts of my journey was just, I was just praying to God. I was just asking God, like, what should I do? Should I go to fashion school, or should I just, my other option, I was gonna go to Berkeley and just do like some, I was looking into becoming a PA, a physician's assistant, another, that's a whole other thing. I was just looking for options that, for something that wasn't too much schooling and that was a sure job that I was gonna be able to maintain and keep and have job security. So I was like, I could be a PA, I can be a physician's assistant. But so I went to both schools. I interviewed at both schools. The first school was Berkeley. I'm from New York, by the way, so hello, fellow New Yorkers. And I decided to just go to school in state instead of out of state because, to be quite honest, New York has a lot of like the best options available when it comes to schooling anyways. And then if you're gonna do fashion, like, New York is definitely it. There are schools in California, but New York is definitely it for like fashion school. And medical, you can go to different places, but at that time I was looking into Berkeley. My grades weren't like the greatest because I used to skip school. I graduated high school but I was bad though. I used to skip class and all of that, so I didn't have a 4.0 GPA, but I was willing to make up for that, the mistakes I made in high school, and just work extra hard outside of college. So if you're in high school and you're watching this, do your work, stay in class, because it's honestly like easier. I mean, I got my diploma, but if your GPA average is high and you want to go for something that's like bigger in certain fields that's needed, like the medical field, or like any type of mathematical or engineering position, like, then yeah, stay the course. But I did both interviews at Berkeley, and then I went to the Art Institute, which was at the time at Soho, and then they relocated to the old Parsons School. I did both interviews, and the one that made my heart sing was the interview at the Art Institute of New York City. It just was like, no, this is where I belong. That's how I felt. Like, when I came in the school and I saw all the fashion students and I seen the fashion boards and I seen everything, it just, it took my breath away. Just walking in and seeing like all the dress forms and all the seniors at the time that were there, and they gave you a tour of just like people making dressmaking. And at that point in time, I was 18 years old. I was 19, going on 19 years old, I think. And I wasn't, I hadn't made a dress or a gown or anything at that point yet. So it was the very, very beginning for me. I didn't know how to use a sewing machine. I knew how to knit a little bit because I would hang out with my grandmother, and I knew how to hand sew. So at that point, because I didn't go to like an arts high school or anything, so I only knew little things that was taught in home economics and whatever my great grandmother told me, who was a seamstress, by the way. Rest her heart, she passed away at age 104, so she's blessed and in heaven. But yeah, so at that time I was just like, this is the school, this is where I have to be at. Like, I felt like I couldn't leave. Like, so I signed up for that school, and I dropped out. So that's actually a part of my school story. I am a college dropout. I love the school. I'm gonna break that down to you guys. So I loved going to school, like, and I had a 3.8 GPA average, like, at that school. I loved it. So it had me dropping out of fashion school had nothing to do with me not loving school. At the time, I did a lot of volunteer work with my church, a lot. And so, and I don't know how you guys do the get ready with me, because I like doing two things at once. I don't know, maybe I'm not as smart as everybody, but I'm doing the best that I can. So yeah, I did a lot of humanitarian work at the time, and at that time when I started school, I was volunteering with my church, and I was all over the place. I was volunteering with my church, and I was in school at the same time. I was in several different teams with volunteering. So at the time we had like Sandy disaster in New York, and so like with the flooding and people losing their homes and losing their like finances, it was like catastrophic, really. A lot of people didn't have shelter or food to eat or anywhere to go. So I would be a part of disaster relief, things like that, you know, helping feed the community, outreaching to homeless people who lost their houses in crisis situations. And so I was very much involved in that kind of work on the side outside of school. And at a point in time, that took over more than when I was in school, because I went on something that churches call missions trips. I went on a mission trip to India, and I was in India for 17 days, so a little over 2 weeks, and at the 16 days, I'm sorry, so a little over 2 weeks. And at the time I was in school, and I was supposed to start school when I got back from India. I was working with women who had been sex trafficked, and women who were, and children who were abducted into sex trafficking and just in brothels, and they needed help. And then we also did outreaches to the community, medical outreaches, like for dentistry, gave out free medicine, and we did a lot. If you guys are interested on a video on that, I'll definitely make one. But as far as now, just for the sake of my story of how I got into fashion, I got this package. I was praying, and I was just like asking for a sign, like if I should continue school or not, because I started to feel kind of funny about my school. Which, if you don't believe in like intuition and stuff, you're missing out, because my school actually got shut down. There was a class action lawsuit, and so my gut feelings were correct about my school. I just kept saying something doesn't feel right, like financially. It had nothing to do with the art. I loved my professors, I loved the work. It just didn't feel right. And so and I had a partial scholarship, and then the rest my parents were helping me pay out of pocket. So thank God for them. They did help me with paying the other side, because I was able to collect financial aid, and I had a partial scholarship because I maintained a really high GPA average, so that was awarded to me. But besides that, I did have help from my parents, and they made payments for my school. Besides all of the help, that the financial assistance that I did receive, because we weren't rich, but my parents middle class. My mom was a captain, correction officer, Rikers Island in New York, and my dad was a part of the carpentry union in New York City. So he ran a lot of the jobs out there, which we don't live in New York anymore. We live in Florida now. That's why I keep saying out there. I've recently moved to Florida. So I'm a Floridian now, but I'm still a New York at heart. Anyway, so I asked God for a sign, and people might call me crazy, but while I was in India, my mother called me, and this was about 2000, and I want to say 14, 15, around that time. I have to get the right dates, but my mom called me and she's like, you got a package from your school. And I was like, okay, open it. And it was an exit package, like saying that I withdrew from school, not that I kicked out from school, that I personally withdrew from school. And I was like, what the heck? I did not withdraw from school. All I did was pray. And so I was like, oh, I guess that's my sign. I don't know. So I said, you know what, I'll deal with it when I get back. My school's in Seoul. So I get back from India. It was in Pune, by the way, Pune and New Delhi. So shout out anybody from Pune and New Delhi. When I get back from India, y'all, 18-hour flight. I get back from India. I had to start school pretty much right away. I think the next week or something like that. So I was jet lagged and all of that. I'm not even gonna get into that. And I went into the administrator's office, and I brought the packet with me, and I was like, is everything okay? Like, am I getting kicked out of school or something? And they told me, no, this was a mistake. Like, that was a mistake. And I was like, oh my gosh, because remember I prayed. So, you know, for people that don't believe in prayer and whatnot, you know, everybody has free will. You're allowed to believe what you believe, but this is my story and my personal experience. I was like, you know what? I'm withdrawing from school right now. And the guidance counselor, whoever I was speaking to at the administrative office, they was like, what? No, it was a mistake. Everything is okay. Like, you don't have to withdraw from school. So I was like, well, I just, no, I know this doesn't make any sense to you right now, but I'm gonna make the decision to withdraw. So she was the woman I was speaking to, she was really trying to get me not to withdraw from school. And I want to say that I was like going towards my junior year, so I had another like year and a half or something like that left to do. So it didn't make sense from the outward side, but it actually ended up working out for me, which is so strange. But so I decided to withdraw, and they were still like, you can change your mind, like blah blah blah. And I was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna change my mind. So I withdrew from school that day, and I didn't go on with the next like semester that I was supposed to be going on to. And I loved school. It had nothing to do. I did it on a whim. So I'm gonna say that if you are going to fashion school, you should definitely graduate. Like, that was my own personal journey, and it happened for a reason, and which I'm gonna share afterwards. But I think that your classes are very important. I think becoming an expert in draping and all your clothing construction classes and your pattern making classes and your sketching classes are very important. So while yes, you can sort of get this knowledge for free, I learned a lot at school that is still embedded in me that I appreciate, because I did take some of the knowledge from school and from my internships, and I've been able to apply it to my professional career. But this is now no way in me telling you, because I dropped out and I was successful in working with like major brands, that you should do that. Everybody's on their own journey. This is just my personal journey. Before I dropped out, about 7 months into schooling from when I first started, I had acquired an internship. So my school was good for something because I got my first internship through school. So during Fashion Week, they would have people come in from all over New York who were looking for interns and like a job fair kind of service. And you could go to the job fair and you can interview right on the spot right there. And so that actually is what ended up happening to me. And that's how I got my first internship. So because I got that internship through school, I was already working in the industry from before I dropped out of school. So after I dropped out of school, I was still working with that company. So I was already in the industry. So what happened was, it was a free internship at first. It's this company called G Industries. It was a two-part company, small boutique Fashion Week and G Industries. At that time, I believe I was 18 going on 19 years old. So I was still a teenager and I was still very young, and I didn't make all the best decisions at the time. So I'm gonna say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity and the information and teaching and experience. And please excuse the construction that's going on outside if you can hear it. I'm just so grateful for that experience with that company. And I do wish that I left on better terms with that company. There was nothing disrespectful that happened. I'll explain that after. But just being young and being expectant for certain things that I didn't really understand at that time, I do wish that things ended possibly a little bit more different, but it's okay. It wasn't like anything bad like that, but I'll explain later. So the company was called G Industries and Small Boutique Fashion Week. So, which now they are a Forbes listed Fashion Week company, and they've been officially like added to New York Fashion Week. And at the time they were too when I was working with them, but when they first started out they weren't. So they made milestones because it was a company that worked with local designers and not just like the more A-list brands. It was Hoboken, New Jersey based and New York City based. So on the sample making company side, I started working with them on the Fashion Week side first. So I was interning backstage. I was a backstage intern, and I had to just assist backstage in anything that they needed help with. So I helped the backstage coordinator and the owner of the company at the time do whatever they asked me. So if I had to help with the models or I had to assist designers, it was a little different than like your typical New York Fashion Week runway show, because there would be multiple designers, and it looked the same as a New York Fashion Week setup, but with the multiple makeup artists, except it was just like the backstage had a lot of designers backstage, and everybody had their own area and their own models. And so we would do show after show after show. So it was like with local designers who sometimes they would come from outside of New York as well and pay for a slot to get, if you didn't know, designers do pay for a slot to be in the show. So that's why a lot of designers are off doing their own shows and events and showcases outside of New York Fashion Week. But yes, so they would pay for a slot. The models were given to them, were like they didn't have to pay. Well, I guess it came a part of the package. So we did the casting for the models, and then we would put whatever models with whatever designers, and we would get a lot of models actually, like a lot of models. And you didn't have to be a part of an agency, so it was like, and you didn't have to be like certain heights, because it was more of a local type of situation. It wasn't as strict as the actual Fashion Industries type, which is obviously now changing a lot, not fully, but it has changed a lot with including other body types and heights and weights and whatnot. But it's a very different time now. But at that time when I was working, it was very strict still. But with this show, it wasn't as strict, and he was very smart. The boss, he picked up picked up a lot of attention, and it was a very smart just endeavor, and I believe it's still going on, but I'm not. Ooh, sorry guys. I believe it's still going on, but I'm not sure. I started doing backstage coordinating with that company, and so I had the runway experience before working New York Fashion Week with the designer that I ended up working with after Small Boutique Fashion Week. But this company that I worked with was also a sample making company. So we did runway for Fashion Week 2 times a year, and then we also did sample making for local artists, local fashion designers who needed. If you don't know what a sample piece is, it's something that you would create if you're trying to make a lot of like a huge quantity of clothing pieces, and you want to take it to a factory, and you need to show them like what you want the outfit to look like, and perhaps you may not be a seamstress yourself, so you would go to a sample making company to get the sample created for you, or you could work with a design consultant to get that done for yourself if you are in a seamstress or tailor yourself. So we would do that. So honestly, what's so crazy is that I took my clothing construction classes in college, but I actually learned how to sew at my internship first. So I'm actually really grateful for, even though I had my clothing construction classes, but my boss at Small Boutique and G Industries, he taught me how to sew first, and he was very patient with me. And so I was working on all these sample projects. It was an unpaid internship at the time. I didn't start getting paid until later on, probably like a year later, when we would do the shows. He started to pay me for the shows, for the events. But I was doing an unpaid internship for a while, but I thought it was worth it at the time. Like, I really needed to learn, and I don't know, I just went with my gut. It felt good to be a part of it, and I think I made the right decision by being a part of that company, even though it was unpaid. So yeah, I will say that my parents did help me at that time. They helped me pay for my transportation. So I am gonna be honest, I had help with paying for transportation, and I would bring food from home, or sometimes they would give me money for food, because I know that that's something that is a very realistic thing for people when you don't have the money to eat on a daily basis and you don't have a job. And so a lot of the students that I knew, they did have a job, and they would get an internship and be in school and just working their butts off, to be honest. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I worked hard. I worked many hours, long hours, early and late hours. When I was working at Marquesa, I worked 100-hour weeks. Like, but I'm gonna say this, I'm not complaining about it. I loved it. When you love your craft, like, the hours, they kind of like, they just like go quickly. Like, I was never like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to go home. Like, I never felt that way. I loved it so much. So I'm gonna say that whatever you're doing, make sure you're in love with it, because the amount of hours that you end up working, like, it's not even gonna matter. This video is quite long, but I think I need to do long form content, so that's what I'm gonna do. So yeah, anyways, I got a lot of backstage runway experience from working with that company. I learned how to sew and make samples with that company. I wasn't doing pattern making with him, but I was working on the samples. Like, I was sewing the samples. And outside of sewing the samples, I was constantly doing runs to the garment district. And at this time, this was from Hoboken to New York City. So I was taking the PATH train, okay, because I didn't have my own car at that time. So I was taking the PATH train to Soho, and then from Soho to the garment district. I remember it like it was yesterday. But I loved being on the train and stuff. It really didn't bother me. Only sometimes if I was really tired, I was like, okay, I want to go home. But for the most part, I just made the most of my time. Like, I always had a book. I always had like my music, or I was sketching, or I used to work on projects on the train. I would pull out something and I would be sewing on the train, so to make the time go by. So to be quite honest, it didn't bother me much. It was very time consuming, very. So if you're a complainer and you don't like these type of things and you don't know how to work with just doing things that you don't like sometimes, then this is not for you. Because when you work for a designer or a company, any type of fashion company, you're gonna do things that you don't feel like doing at the time, but in the end, I'm gonna say that it pays off in knowledge. Because had I not been running those errands, had I not been sent to the garment district, and getting, picking up all the things that was needed, or meeting with just different clients and whatnot, it gave me the knowledge and experience that I needed for my own company. Because I think it's really smart to learn things from the ground up. So being in the lowest position to the highest, I don't look at positions as being low. I look at them as every position is needed. Whether you're sweeping the atelier, or you're the head pattern maker, or the senior designer, every single last position in that atelier matters. Of course, you're gonna get your people that are, pig-headed and egotistical, and they think, oh, I'm a designer, I'm the this and I'm the that. But the real ones know. They know that every part matters, and working in an atelier is really a team effort. But when you first come in, you can't expect to be like at the top, just off top. Like, you need to learn, you need to work, and you need to earn that role of being a manager or a top designer. Like, you have to earn that role. So anyways, I worked with them for a while, until they started to grow and bigger and bigger, but I was not happy with the pay at the time for doing my backstage assistance work, which later on, after interning, I became like one of the backstage actual coordinators. Like, I took that position that someone else was in. The one that I was helping them now, I became that person, and I was running the back of house, the front of house, and helping manage just like interns. I had to hire interns. Now I was a part of casting the models, and I just really grew in that company. And I ended up leaving the company just at the time because of pay. I was young. I was like 19, and I was just like, okay, like, I'm working so hard and I really need money now. And so money was starting to become a thing, and I was starting to also get that pressure from just from all around, from bills, and I'm like, I need to be making money, and I can't really like afford to just give so much free time anymore. So I ended up moving on from that company, and not in a wrongful way, but I kind of like was very honest with the owner. We were very cool and we always kikied, okay? But I just told him, like, I just need to be paid more. But that was something that we hadn't discussed, early on. And as a 19-year-old, I guess that's something that I should have. I'm not making an excuse for being 19 and not thinking of that, but I just didn't know, And so that's something that we should have discussed before. What was expected as far as like how much I was going to get paid. And I had a job before that. I worked at Abercrombie, and I was a waitress before then, so I understood how to get, like, how the work situation goes and how you get paid and whatnot. But at that time, I was being like just paid out of pocket on the side. Like, I didn't have, it wasn't like official. It was just like, here's some money for helping, not helping, but actually like helping run the show. And so I guess at the time I was a little upset at that because him and I was having some I knew how much money the company was making from the show, and I knew how much I was getting paid and how much work I was doing towards the show. And I guess at the time I was just upset about that. But I realize now that I couldn't be upset about that because I overextended myself without putting into writing the terms of what I was also expecting. So that was a learning lesson for me. And I hope that's a learning lesson for you, that, you know, if you feel like, you know, you're just in a position where you want to make more money, or you should just be very vocal about that. And so anyways, I'm still thankful for the company and for the work that I did with them, because I was able to gain a lot of experience from it, and I believe that it helped open up the door for the next company that I ended up working with. Hello YouTube family, thank you so much for joining and subscribing to my channel. I promise you won't regret it. We're gonna have a lot of fun going forward, and you're gonna learn a lot. So if you stick around and you stay tuned, I will be pushing some future fashion content for you fashionistas out there that want to become a wardrobe stylist or a fashion designer. And I definitely want to inspire you and teach you things that I have learned along the way. So definitely stay tuned, leave a comment. I'm definitely going to be answering people and responding to questions and speaking on different topics. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to speak on, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. I'll review it, and I'll definitely make a video on it, especially if it's like something that I have experience with. So have a great day.